Thank you, Bernali. Justice Hiren Sharma, Justice D.N. Chowdhury, Tarakeswar Chowdhury, sir, ladies and gentlemen. I chose this topic because, as has been pointed out, Amitabh was one of the finest products of the city of Guwahati. Extraordinarily sensitive, full of questions all the time. He loved to hear stories of Guwahati, Guwahati's past. Hence this topic. There will be two parts of my lecture. The first part on the historical scene. It's a series of general observations on the city of Guwahati, which has three components. And the second part will be a kind of freewheeling discussion on some of the personalities of the past to whom we owe everything, our sense and sensibility, pride and prejudice, everything. So without any waste of time, I would like to read out a few lines, which, as I said, are a series of general observations on the city. Guwahati was a temple town that later transformed itself into a military garrison, guarded on all its sides by hundreds and thousands of soldiers. Jean-Baptiste Chevalier, governor of Chandarnagar, 1767-78, who visited Assam during 1755-57, saw with his own eyes some 50,000 men guarding the river banks in Guwahati near Sukreswar. Actually, no one was allowed to enter into the city. So it was Jean-Baptiste Chevalier himself who said that 50,000 Assamese soldiers were guarding the river banks. It was in the middle of the 18th century. Guwahati's history has three components: the mythopoetic past of Pragjyotispur, the number two, Kamrupa from the 7th century till the 17th century. 7th century means from Kumar Bhaskar Burma to the 17th century. And finally, from the 17th century to the present times. So three components. The artifacts yielded by the series of Ambari excavations point to a strong link between the mythopoetic and the modern, the continuity of a tradition from far-off antiquity to the subsequent periods, from the 7th century to the 12th century, and from the 13th century to the 17th. From the early 19th century to the middle of the 20th, Bhorolumukh remained the intellectual and cultural capital of the city. I'll be talking about it in the second part. Bhorolumukh, the birthplace and citadel of modernity in Assam, linking this land to the rest of the world. The continuing potency of the Pragjyotispur myth is borne out by the rich share of Sthala Puranas, or legendary accounts of the place. Many gods and goddesses and godlike heroes have, according to them, passed by this place, leaving behind them a trail of memories eventually consecrated by time. The prominent among those who throng the mythical world of Guwahati, identified as well with the ancient city of Pragjyotispur or Kamrupa, include, number one, Brahma, who, according to Kalika Purana, had created the stars at Navagraha, situated on the Chitrasal hill at the heart of the city. Number two, Bishnu, whose footprints are worshipped at Janardhan Bishnu temple at Ossakranta. Number three, Shiva, who is worshipped in scores of temples in and around Guwahati. Number four, Sati, whose memory is inscribed in Kamakhya, one of the prominent Shakta Pithas of the country. And five, Ganesha, whose vast image gives a place near the city, near the state capital, its name, Ganeshguri. Says Vasishtha and his wife Arundhati also make their mythical presence felt at Bohistashram, some 10 kilometers west of Panbaja, the heart of the city now. Indeed, the myths evoke ideas of ancient geography with such compelling force that they baffle a weary reader's attempts at reconstructing the past. An article, Ancient Assam, published in the Calcutta Review, volume 45, 1867, related Assam to Lord Krishna's Magadhan campaign and made speculations about the etymology of the word Guwahati in these words. Very interesting speculation about the etymology of the word Guwahati, and also interesting observation on Lord Krishna, whom we worship. It was after the Magadha campaign that Krishna, moved no doubt by the prospect of plunder, as by any fanatical spirit, Krishna is called a plunderer here, marched against the capital of Narakasur. Indeed, it may be regarded as more than probable that Pragjyotispur of the Hindu annals and Kusavati of the Pali and Tibetan records were one and the same city. Tanar, in his introduction to the Mahabhangsha, Mahabhangsha is a 5th century Sri Lankan chronicle, and it was newly edited in the 20th century. A Mahabhangsha mentions Kusavati as one of the chief cities in India at this period, which were noted as the seats of government of the different branches of the Magad family. It received its name from the Kusa grass, with which this part of the country abounds. And we are much mistaken if the modern Guwahati is not simply a corruption of the olden name. The Assamese notoriously substitute a soft for a harsh sound and aspirate for a sibilant. Thus, G would be substituted for K and H for S. With these substitutes, Kusavati would become Guwahati, and with further substitution of H for W, Guwahati. This last represents precisely the mode in which the word is universally pronounced by the people. It is the same story of Guwahati's past that came to be repeated in the Baptist Missionary Magazine, August 1874. And interestingly, in the same kind of language, words and phrases of the Calcutta Review piece, all intact. Quote, Pragjyotispur, the modern Guwahati, is spoken of by Ptolemy as Asonomaro. So Ptolemy is brought in. Asonomaro, the destroyed throne. So these are the speculations. And Tanar, in his preface to the Mahabhangsha, mentions it as one of the chief cities in India at that period, etc. So I skip this part. Guwahati derives its present name in the 16th or the 17th century. References to this place as Guwahata or Guwahati, more or less common in 17th century Assamese, Bengali and Mughal records. Among the Mughal records, Tarikhi Assam is there, Fatiha-i-Ibriya, and an English translation of the book has already been published by Agdas Ali Mir, translated into Assamese by one of my former colleagues, Majar Asif, now at JNU. Guwahati derives its present name in the 16th or the 17th century. References to this place as Guwahati are more or less common in 17th century Assamese, Bengali and Mughal records. Various conjectures have so far been made about the etymology of the word, the least troublesome among them being the Sanskrit Guwakahata, Guwahati, meaning a marketplace or area full of areca nuts. The Chinese pilgrim Huensang's reference to the great number of areca nut trees here, along with two inscriptions of King Balaburman of Kamarupa, describing the city in terms of the areca nut trees, lend credence to this derivation. To say that the word Gua has come from Guha or Kartikeya or Guha, cave, is perhaps to stretch things a little too far. Guwahati was one of the main theaters of contest during the Ahom-Mughal conflicts of the 17th century. In 1639, the contesting powers fixed the river Barnadi and the highway Osurar Ali near Guwahati as the boundary between Assam and Mughal India. While Kamrup was ruled by Mughal Faujdars with their headquarters at Guwahati, Momai Tamuli Borborua, the Ahom general, stationed himself at a garrison at the end of Guwahati to resist any possible attack on the Ahom kingdom. In 1568, King Jayadhar Singha wrested Guwahati from the Mughals and extended his power to the neighborhood of Dhaka. The victory was short-lived. Guwahati was captured again in 1662-63 by Mughal forces under Mir Jumla. Hostilities continued unabated, and the Mughals were ultimately ejected from the town on November 4, 1667. The news of the recapture of Guwahati by the Ahoms having reached Emperor Aurangzeb in December, Rajput General Raja Ram Singh was deputed to lead an expedition to Assam. This powerful Mughal army, consisting of 30,000 infantry, 80,000 Turkish cavalry, 15,000 Coach archers, and others, was inflicted defeat by the Assamese, led by Lasit Borphukan, in what came to be known as, in history as the Battle of Saraighat. Pushing the Mughal army beyond Assam's western frontier at Manaha, the Ahoms regained possession of Guwahati and Kamrup. The town again fell to the Mughals on February 26, 1679. In 1682, the invading army of Mughals was attacked at Itakhuli or Sukreshwar Hill at Guwahati by the Ahom forces, and the town finally liberated from the Mughal marauders. Guwahati thus remained under the Mughals for about 26 years in the 17th century. There was this 19th century Assamese song by Radhanath Fukan, Kionu Pahora Ohomia Hera Sirokal Tumi Asila Sadhin, a famous song. But then this Guwahati itself was under the Mughals for full 26 years, and maybe later 2 years under the Burmese. It was at Guwahati again that King Rudra Singha had mobilized a huge army of 400,000 soldiers to take over Bengal. Incidentally, I remember it was Mamoni Roysom Goswami who took up a major project on this theme, Rudra Singha trying to capture Bengal. An advance force stationed near the river Manaha waited for a signal from the king to enter the Mughal territory in Bengal. But the king died all of a sudden at Guwahati in September 1714, his dream of conquest unfulfilled. With British merchants starting their business transactions in Assam, Guwahati emerged as an important township in Assam in the 18th century. Disputes with foreign merchants and invaders were all decided here. Following disturbances in Upper Assam, King Gaurinath Singha fled to Guwahati in January 1788, leaving his Prime Minister Purnananda Buragohai at Gorgaon to manage the deepening crisis in Upper Assam. The king remained here at Guwahati for 6 years, February 1788 to January 1794, during which he established contact with East India Company with a view to curbing insurgency in his kingdom. The early years of the 19th century found Guwahati in turmoil again. The town was occupied in June 1822 by Mingi Maha Bondula, the redoubtable Burmese general, who had come here to establish Jogeshwar Singha as the king of Assam by expelling the embattled monarch Chandrakanta Sinha. The British troop finally entered Guwahati on March 28 and, after fierce fighting with the Burmese, occupied the town. On the annexation of Assam by the British, following the signing of the Treaty of Yandabo, February 24, 1826, Guwahati became the vantage ground for the new rulers to control further operations from. For about 200 years till the British occupation of the region, Guwahati, the seat of the Ahom Viceroy, there is this Borphukan or Tila, where this Ahom Viceroy stayed. Later, it was Archibald Bogle who stayed there. And now this place is known as the River Heritage Center. Wonderful place, a wonderful view of the river. For about 200 years till the British occupation of the region, Guwahati, the seat of the Ahom Viceroy, was a heavily fortified township. Then, quote, this is a quotation from William Robinson, a descriptive account of Assam 1840, quote, "It occupied within its fortifications a vast extent of country on both banks of the great stream, that is the Brahmaputra, the hills on either side forming a spacious amphitheater, equally well fortified by nature and by art. It was the capital of all Lower Assam and the residence of the Viceroy or Borphukan. The entrances into the city were all guarded passes on either bank of the river. The ruins of the gateways of some of these passes are still to be seen, and the remains of the extensive fortifications may to this day be traced to miles in the mounds and ditches that now serve only to mark the ancient citadel, unquote, William Robinson. What is now called North Guwahati was within the main urban jurisdiction, and it had the following fortified entrances: Silar Soki, Osokrantor Soki, Rajaduara Soki, or Kanai Borohi Boa Soki. Entrances to the southern part of the town were Joyduar Soki, Kharghorar Soki, Kukurakota Soki, Panikhaiti Soki, Beltola Soki. The only entrance to the west was variously designated Duar Gorilla Soki, Dobdorar Soki, and Pandur Soki. The British officials found Guwahati a very poor place, quote unquote. This is from Hamilton, an account of Assam. He never visited Guwahati. He stayed there in Gwalpara, Hadira Soki, and maybe he got reports about the unhealthy atmosphere of the city. The most unhealthy station in Assam, skirted by high ranges of hills, obstructing prevailing winds, proximity of dense wooded marshy jungles, and multitude of oil tanks choked up with weeds, jungles, and marshy lands. This is from John Meko's Topography of Assam. Colonel Hopkinson, agent to the Governor General, Northeast Frontier, felt Guwahati was neither fit for habitation of European officers and their families, nor even for natives of India beyond Assam. When the idea of a college at Guwahati was mooted towards the end of the 19th century, some people objected to the choice of Guwahati as a site for the new college and pointed to Shillong instead as what was considered the most appropriate place for it. For all this, however, Guwahati was chosen as the headquarters of the company rule for its strategically central location. Dharmakanto Guhai, in his Guwahati Biboran, it's a long poem celebrating Guwahati, description of Guwahati, in Orunodoy, June 1853. He took appreciated note of the new styles of architecture, characterizing the Commissioner's Court, the Magistrate's Court, and the church, among others. The huge concrete structures, quote unquote, were described there as high as the mountain, suggesting a radical change in the landscape of the town within years of the British conquest of the region. Steamer service in the Brahmaputra between Calcutta and Guwahati was introduced in 1847, and within a decade it was extended from Guwahati to Dibrugarh. Rail service between Guwahati and Calcutta was inaugurated in 1911, following completion of work on the track after the great earthquake of 1897. Though the seat of government was shifted to Shillong on the constitution of Assam as the Chief Commissioner's province in 1874, Guwahati retained its importance as the nerve center of the entire region for close to a century till 1971, when the capital of the state was shifted to Dispur in Guwahati on the carving of the new state of Meghalaya out of the earlier Assam districts of Khasi and Jayantia Hills and Garo Hills. The establishment of Cotton College, 1901, Earl Law College, 1915, Handy Girls College, 1939, and the university, 1948, turned Guwahati into a higher education hub of the state in the first half of the 20th century. Guwahati was also in the forefront of the struggle against British imperialism. Mahatma Gandhi's first visit to the city on 18th August 1921 heralded a new era of the freedom struggle in the region. The Guwahatians on that day, accompanied by hundreds and thousands of people from the neighboring villages, flocked to Pandu Ghat to receive him and later witnessed the bonfire of foreign clothes in the presence of Tarun Ram Phukon's house at Bhorolumukh. Gandhiji again came to the city on 26 December 1926 to attend the AICC session at Pandu. The city brought credit to itself by organizing an event of such magnitude in a remarkably short span of time. To quote D.G. Tendulkar, the Mahatma's biographer, quote, Guwahati beat all previous records and in an incredibly short time erected in the midst of surroundings of natural beauty on the banks of the Brahmaputra, a city under khadi canvas. Assam bamboo, Assam mud, Assam straw, and Assam labor were responsible for the very simple but artistic huts erected for the occasion, unquote. This is from Mahatma, Life of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, Volume 2. We all know that Gandhiji again came here in 1934 and in 1946, and some senior citizens of Guwahati had seen Gandhiji, and they also went up to the Saranya Hill. Justice Chowdhury also touched Mahatma's feet there, Saranya Hill, in 1946. So this was a rapid survey of the scene of history, which, as I had said, the three components. Now I come to some personalities. Actually, I must offer an explanation about the choice of the topic. It was the city and its dwellers. Now I'll be talking about the dwellers of the city. And dwelling, it has all sorts of philosophical meanings. Dwelling also involves a sense of belonging. So among the dwellers, I also include not merely some Europeans who were officers here, like Francis Hamilton, who first came here as a lieutenant, then became major, then lieutenant colonel. Finally, he retired as a major general. And maybe to a certain extent, the 19th century was the century of Francis Jenkins. So Jenkins, Methi, Bogle, and so on and so forth, they are also dwellers of the city. So I'll be talking about them in some very general terms. Guwahati is a vast echo chamber, reverberating with pulsing sounds of footfalls. So here, footfalls. Footfalls. I remember some lines from folk quartets, which I kept reciting here in these rooms. This was called the Union Hall when we were students and when I taught here. This was U2, U9. And this is how folk quartets, this is one of the finest poems by T.S. Eliot, begins. Time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future, and time future contained in time past. If all time is eternally present, all time is unredeemable. What might have been is an abstraction, remaining a perpetual possibility only in a world of speculation. What might have been and what has been point to one end, which is always present. Footfalls echo in the memory. Footfalls. So I'll be talking about footfalls. Footfalls not only of people who were here, but also of the visitors. And the visitors include great men like Mahatma Gandhi, even C.V. Raman and others, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, who stayed here when the first convocation of Guwahati University took place in February 1951. Radhakrishnan stayed here in the principal's house, in the vice chancellor's house. This was the residence of the vice chancellor of Guwahati University, and the redoubtable K.K. Hendik was the vice chancellor, and Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan stayed here as his guest. Anyway, footfalls echo in the memory. Guwahati is a vast echo chamber, reverberating with pulsing sounds of footfalls, echoes near and distant of the footfalls of people who were dwellers of the city. Great people have lived here down the ages, men and women of strength and courage, knowledge and wisdom, grit and grace and resilience, great poets, great writers, great leaders and freedom fighters, erudite scholars, men and women of formidable intellect, historians and literary personalities. Already Justice Chowdhury has named some of these great men. He has talked about footballers, he talked about Telimaranao. I can also talk about Hemrod Datta Chowdhury, whom we have forgotten. Hemrod Datta Chowdhury. It was the great P.C. Rai called him the golden chariot. Hem is gold, wrought his chariot. He called him, P.C. Rai called him the golden chariot. So P.C. Rai, Hemrod Datta Chowdhury, Telimaranao, Sarad Das, they were great footballers. They were great musicians. So we'll have occasion to talk about them in course of time. Men and women of formidable intellect, historians like Kanaklal Borua, Surya Kumar Bhuya, Herambo Borpujari, Amalendu Guho, these were the people. And literary personalities, great teachers, we have almost forgotten their names now. Janmejoy Das, who was the headmaster of Cotton Collegiate School. Chandra Mohan Goswami, who was the guru of Lakshmanath Besborua and Padmanath Gohai Bura. Chandra Mohan Goswami, a great teacher. Later he became inspector of schools or magistrate. But I think finally he came back to collegiate school, Janmejoy Das and Chandramohan Goswami, we recall. Then another person, Rameshwar Borua. His name is important here because he was the first Assamese teacher of Cotton College. At the time he was working at Cotton Collegiate School. Actually, we should remember him as the first teacher of Assamese composition. Assamese composition was a subject in Cotton College at the time. It was in 1913 that Satyanath Bora joined as a lecturer in Assamese Cotton College. But prior to that, Rameshwar Borua taught Assamese composition to students for a year or so. Rameshwar Borua spent much of his time at Nagaon, and I think finally he came to Guwahati and spent a year here, and he also taught at Cotton College. Rameshwar Borua, very important personality. He was General Secretary of Assam Sahitya Sabha for 3 consecutive terms. He was also the editor of the Assam Sahitya Sabha Patrika. He was a founder member and activist of the Srimanta Shankar Sangha. He was a writer of Namgoha and its place in literature. He contributed a number of articles in the contemporary periodicals, and it was Professor Maheshwar Neog who gave the Rameshwar Borua centenary lecture, which some Sahitya Sabha had later published as Guru Choritor Iti Kotha. There in the first 2 or 3 pages, Professor Neog talked about Rameshwar Borua, and he said that Rameshwar Borua's paper, Rameshwar Borua's Assamese article, Tamil Nokhua Sampradayar Kotha, quote unquote. This is the name of the essay. I haven't been able to read this essay because I haven't found it in any of the journals I have access to. Tamil Nokhua Sampradayar Kotha, which Maheshwar Neog called it one very important research paper ever published. The organization of the data and so on and so forth. This is Rameshwar Borua. So we remember him as the first Assamese teacher of Cotton College. So great teachers. Okay, numerous teachers are there, numerous teachers of Cotton Collegiate School, Cotton College, not only P.C. Rai, Bonamali Chakraborty and others. Great teacher. Padmanath Vidya Binod. Some Assamese people made fun of him. Even Dr. Banikanta Kakoti made fun of him, Padmanath Vidya Binod, because in those days this Assamese Bengali kind of conflict was there. Anyway, great teacher to whom we owe this Kamrup Sasonabuli, a classic. Without Kamrup Sasonabuli, sorry, some kind of disturbance, yeah. So the Europeans were Francis Jenkins, 1793, 1866, James Matthew. Now these names are important because it was because of Jenkins and Matthew that Anandaram Dhekial Fukan could go to Calcutta. So we'll be talking about this. Archibald Bogle, there is the famous Bogle Road. And even that house, which has now become a river heritage center, Scottish kind of architecture, that was built by Archibald Bogle. Then William Robinson. William Robinson was the second headmaster of Collegiate School. He later became inspector of schools. He was not only here, he also worked there at Tezpur. Horibilas Agarwala met him at Tezpur when he was inspector of schools. Reverend Robert James Bland. James Bland is important for us. James Bland, he was an assistant chaplain of this church. Assistant chaplain, later he became chaplain. And we all know that Anandaram Dhekial Fukan couldn't continue there in Calcutta because of problems on the home front. Because of problems on the home front, he had to come back. And he was just loitering here, and he met James Matthew. Matthew said, okay, meet Reverend Bland, and he will teach you English. Reverend Bland was a graduate of Jesus College, Cambridge. And it was Reverend Bland who taught Anandaram Thekial Phukan English. And this is something to be taken note of. Reverend Bland, he married William Robinson's daughter. Bland was married at Guwahati on 6 July 1859 to Emmeline, daughter of William Robinson, Inspector of Schools. Bland was a chaplain of Guwahati for 18 years. Bland is important for us because of his association with Anandaram Thekial Phukan. So among the dwellers, I would also like to take note of a casual visitor like Bishop Cotton. Bishop Cotton, he was the Bishop of Calcutta, and as such, since Guwahati was also under Calcutta in a sense, it was in Bengal presidency, so he kept coming here. And I remember he took great interest in the activities of the Christians at Guwahati, and he visited the church there, opposite this building, church field, the church. Bishop Cotton, we are all familiar with the Bishop Cotton schools, whether in Calcutta or Simla or Bangalore. Yeah, Bishop Cotton Road is there in Shillong. A great man. Bishop Cotton was really a great man. First he taught at the rugby school when the legendary Thomas Arnold was the headmaster. He joined rugby school as an assistant teacher towards the end of Thomas Arnold's career. The great Thomas Arnold of rugby. And inspired by his ideals, he continued his work. He was there at rugby school for a long time, then came to the Marlborough College as headmaster. And at the time, he got an invitation from Calcutta. So you have to take charge of the bishop. You have to be the Bishop of Calcutta. So at first he was very unwilling because he was not interested in leaving England, but he came here. So since he took great interest in Guwahati, so I would also call him one of the dwellers of Guwahati. And there is one very interesting thing. He was very unhappy about what he saw in this church, this Christ church opposite this building. And he observed, this is quote unquote, the chief disgrace to the church is the font where babies are baptized. He said that it is the chief disgrace. It is the chief disgrace to the church. It is the font, an ordinary wash hand basin supported on 3 bamboo poles, just like an ordinary wash hand basin, standing on the 3 bamboo poles. The seats have been studiously constructed so as to make kneeling impossible, because the person administering the whole thing has to kneel down, but kneeling is impossible here in this condition. The glare of the light through the east window must render the administration of the Holy Communion most distressing. The hymn book used is out of date. Tate and Brady, actually these 2 persons were in charge of this church, they do not satisfy Christian devotion. So this font where babies are baptized, standing on 3 bamboo poles. So let me add that within a span of 120 years, there were, I think, 7 bamboo poles in this area. 7 bamboo poles in this area. 3 there in the Christ Church and 4 here in the Vice Chancellor's house. I'll tell you one story. Particularly remember Raymond Cullis Goffin, R.C. Goffin, because I think Cottonians are celebrating the centenary of the Cotton College magazine. He was the first editor of the Cotton College magazine. He was a great scholar and he had specialized in 14th century English poetry. He had written lots of articles, now available in JSTOR, on the 14th century English poet Chaucer. He also wrote other books, most of them textbooks, but then what interested me was that the name Guwahati occurs there in the preface. R.C. Goffin on the right side and Guwahati on the left, Oxford University Press. So now let me come to the Bhorolumukh family. I had already suggested that Bhorolumukh was the citadel of Assamese modernity. How? The Bhorolumukh family, the origins of the family are traced back to Tiok in the then district of Sibsagar. It is now in Jorhat. And the ancestors of Porokhuram Borua were all children orphaned at an early age. So it was Porokhuram Borua who was one of the first settlers. He settled here at Bhorolumukh. He was earlier at Hadira Choki. He was the chief customs official. Now, since most of you know this story, there was one brahmachari from Dravid land. Some people say that he was a Karnataki Brahmin, but from the names and the surnames, we have to say that I think he belonged to the Telangana Andhra region. Because Patabi Sitaramaya, one of the children was named Patabhiram. They're all Rams, Gunabhiram, Patabhiram. Patabi Sitaramaya, the Congress president, was there. Patabi is the surname of this region, Andhra and Telangana. So there were some orphans from Tiok who came to be adopted by one Lakshmi Narayan Brahmachari. He died in the year 1805 or 1806, who came to Assam in the 18th century at the invitation of King Gaurinath Singha. Always in the good books of the king, Lakshmi Narayan managed to get the job of the main customs official at Hadira Choki. So towards the end of his life, he handed over his charge to Porokhuram Borua. And Porokhuram Borua became such a powerful person, a man of wealth, of course, the main customs official at Hadira Choki, a wealthy man, a very busy man, so busy a man that even David Scott, then judge and commissioner of Rangpur, had to wait for full 3 days to seeking an audience with Porokhuram Borua. So 3 days he spent at Hadira Choki seeking an audience with Porokhuram Borua. And during these 3 days, he spent his time with little Holiram and Jogoram, Porokhuram's sons. So this is the Bhorolumukh family. And I see Meenakshi there. Meenakshi also, I think, belongs to the Bhorolumukh family. Their origins also can be traced back to Bhorolumukh. Porokhuram Borua, who died in 1816, then Porokhuram's son Holiram Dhekial Fukan and Jogoram Kharguria Fukan. Earlier he was Holiram Borua. Of course, Porokhuram Borua's children would be Holiram Borua and Jogoram Borua. But Chandrakanta Sinha made him a Dhekial Fukan. So he became Holiram Dhekial Fukan. And Jogoram was appointed Kharguria Fukan. So Jogoram Kharguria Fukan. Both of them are very interesting personalities. Holiram was a very conservative kind of man, and he didn't learn English or Persian. Persian, of course, you can't think of learning Persian. You can't also think of learning English as well. So Sanskrit was as if his mother tongue, and he also wrote in Sanskrit, Kamakkha Jatra Paddhati. So the most important contribution by Holiram was his Aham Buronji, 1829. 1829, earlier people heard about the first part of Aham Buronji in Bengali, 1829, but it was Jotin Bhattacharya, he was a professor of Bengali in Cotton College. He got the 3 other parts of the book in Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar's collection. So later in the 60s, he brought out these 4 parts as 1 volume, and it was published by Mokshoda Pustakalaya. Jotin Bhattacharya brought it out. Holiram Dhekial Fukan's Aham Buronji, a magnificent work. It was the first history book that introduced Assam to the rest of the world. And it was because Jogaram Kharguriya Fukan was a Brahmo. He was an active Brahmo. Brahmo was a very popular movement in Assam. There was Brahmo Samaj everywhere, in Guwahati, in Dhubri, in Nagaon. Even Nagaon, Jokhalabandha Hotra, Padmahas Goswami was an active Brahmo. Here, Gunaviram Borua became a Brahmo. He became a Brahmo in 1869 at Dhubri. Here also many Brahmos were there. Anyway, Jogaram Kharguriya Fukan was one person who was very close to Ram Mohan Rai. For full 2 years, he was with Ram Mohan Rai, attending his prayer meetings and helping him in his walks. And it was because of Jogaram Kharguriya Fukan that his brother Saham Buronji got immediate publicity. Soon after its publication, it was reviewed in various journals. And on the basis of these reviews, even German reviews were also brought out. His book were reviewed in German magazines. So it was one text which introduced Assam to the rest of the world, Holiram Dhekial Fukon's Aham Buronji. Jogaram Kharguriya Fukan was a very interesting personality. Actually, it was because of their connection with Hadira Choki that they had connection with Murshidabad. And Murshidabad, the most important personality in Murshidabad was Jagat Seth, the banker of the world, Jagat Seth, the banker of the world. So they had connection with Jagat Seth. And whenever Jogaram went to Calcutta, he visited Murshidabad, and he also acted as more or less a chartered accountant of Jagat Seth. He had to examine his financial records and so on and so forth. Jogaram Kharguriya Fukan contributed an amount of 1,000 rupees for the establishment of Cotton Collegiate School. In those days, it was called Guwahati School, 1834 or 1835. Contributed 1,000 rupees. And other things, okay, he lived in style, and he also drank a good deal, and was fond of meat. Anyway, Holiram would never have been able to think of all this. So Holiram was one kind of character, Jogaram another, and their family. Holiram's son was Anandaram Dhekial Fukan. Then daughter Padmavati Devi Fukanani, Radhika Ram Dhekial Fukan. If the Vice Chancellor of Cotton University is here, we wrote an article on Radhika Ram Dhekial Fukan that was published in the History of Science magazine some 3 years ago. We tried to one of the most important contributors. Journalist Hemchandra Borua's Assam News. Then Anandaram Dhekial Fukan, Boloram Fukan. Boloram Kharguriya Fukan. Boloram Fukan was the son of Jogaram Kharguriya Fukan. A great man, a writer. He wrote, he also translated things from Bengali into Assamese. And what is most important is that everyone knows that it was in the 30s of the 19th century that Assamese was replaced by Bengali. Yeah. And it again came to be rehabilitated in the 70s of the 19th century. Just before the official rehabilitation, Boloram Fukan convened a meeting demanding rehabilitation of Assamese. He convened a meeting that was held in the Cotton Collegiate School. And Kondopeswar Sinha was invited to this meeting. He had to preside over the meeting. This is something very important. You all know Kondopeswar Sinha. Actually, it was Moniram Dewan who wanted to make him the king of Assam. And Moniram's conspiracy was out at the time, and Captain Holroyd hanged him, and he had to pay for his conspiracy and all that. And since Kondopeswar Sinha was also in league with Moniram, he was a little boy at the time, he was sent to Burdwan. And I think it was in 1860 that Kondopeswar Sinha was allowed to come here. And from 60 to 80, he spent his time at Guwahati. I have some old records which say that Kondor Prasad Sinha attended some Brahmo Samaj meetings. At least I know of one meeting which was attended by Hemchandra Barua and Kondor Prasad Sinha together. Hemchandra Barua of Hemco fame. Hemchandra Barua was born in 1835 and he passed away in 1896. And I don't exactly know when Kondor Prasad Sinha was born, but then they were contemporaries. I think Kondor Prasad would be junior to Hemchandra Barua. Okay, it's very interesting to note that both of them attended the Brahmo Samaj meetings. There is a very interesting name, Profullabala Chaudhurani. If someone is there, I think he can show us a slide number 14. A very interesting lady. Yeah, this is 14. Please look at her. A beautiful woman and a princess. Chandrakanta Sinha's son was Ghanakanta Sinha. Ghanakanta Sinha's son was Keshav Sinha. She is Keshav Sinha's daughter. So she is an Ahom princess. One of the most interesting characters. Okay, it is because no one talks about her. I wanted to show you her portrait. This is an Ahom princess. She was the president of Ahom Pradeshik Mohila Committee. And the speech she had delivered as the president of the Ahom Pradeshik Mohila Committee in Jorhat in March 1929. This is a burning testimony not only to her own brilliance, but also to the kind of impact that Gandhiji had on a section of Assamese women. Brilliant. Okay, I have the whole speech with me. I can read out some lines. Very important, very interesting. And I think one should read it again and again. This was Profullabala Devi Chaudhurani. Later, she was married to Nagendra Narayan Chaudhury, the great short story writer who became president of Assam Sahitya Sabha. He was a Jamindar Metspara. So Ahom princess married to a coach Jamindar, Nagendra Narayan Chaudhury. And they were also instrumental in the publication of the famous Assamese periodical, Abahan. Actually, it was Dr. Dinanath Sharma who once approached Nagendra Narayan Chaudhury for help. And okay, both of them were of great help. Even they kept going to Calcutta to lend him support. And Abahan is one of the journals where women got a rare kind of importance. It was because of Profullabala Chaudhurani. And as I suggested, her presidential address itself is such an interesting document. Okay, supporting widow marriage or widow remarriage. Then support to the Sarda Act of restriction of child marriage, 1929. So without naming anyone, she has argued in favor of these new ideas. I'll just try to read out a few lines if I have the text with me. Assam Mohila Sonnmiloনৰ দ্বিতীয় বাৰ্ষিক অধিৱেশনৰ সভানেত্ৰীৰ অভিভাষণ. We all know about the child marriage restraint bill, which became Sarda Act 1929. Then Sir Hari Singh Gaur, his Age of Consent Bill, 1929. Hari Singh Gaur, he was a great man. Hari Singh Gaur, he was, I think, Vice Chancellor of Delhi University. If I am not mistaken, he was the founder Vice Chancellor of Delhi University. He was also founder Vice Chancellor of Sagar University, which he was a great lawyer. He was a great educationist. He was also Vice Chancellor of Nagpur University. He was a Vice Chancellor of 3 universities in different times. Hari Singh Gaur, Age of Consent Bill. So age of consent means you must have consent from the bride herself. Okay, it is not your birthright to marry someone. She must give you consent. And the age, I think 16 was the age limit is suggested there. And if we read the debates now in the Imperial Legislative Council, we'll find that even great nationalist leaders like Madan Mohan Malabha and Bal Gangadhar Tilak opposed the bill. They said, okay, it is an undue interference on Hindu customs and religion. This gentleman, he was trying to do this, Haribilas Sada. And it was under the presidency of Prafullawala Devi Chaudhurani that adopted 16 resolutions, if I am not mistaken. I read this document long ago in the Historical Antiquarian Department Library. Eta koi 16 prostab তেওঁলোকে ললে. 16 different resolutions were adopted. The first thing is support to the Sarda Act 1929. Support to the Sarda Act when there was opposition from all parts, from the south to the north. People like Madan Mohan Malabha opposing it. In the south, there were very vocal people. They said, okay, Hinduism is in peril because the bride must be married at the age of 10 or 9. And the difference doesn't matter. The bride is some 9 years old or 10 years old, and the bridegroom could be 35 or 40 or 50. So it was at the time that the second conference of the Assam Pradeshik Mohila Samiti said that the difference between the bride and the bridegroom, the age difference between them should not exceed 25. That means earlier things were worse. And another very important resolution they passed was entry of women into Cotton College. Till then, there was no girl student here in Cotton College. And it was at the initiative of Prafullawala Chaudhurani that they had to adopt a resolution. And she was not only satisfied with adopting the resolution, she entrusted the work of coordinating with Cotton College authorities to Rajabala Das. And Rajabala Das, she was also a great lady. Finally, Cotton College had to allow the entry of girl student, and the first girl student was Sujata Roy, the P.C. Rai's daughter, Sujata Roy. Later, she became Sujata Chowdhury, who became principal Lady Brabourne College, Calcutta. So these were the things that happened. Prafullawala Chaudhurani. So from the royal family at Ujan Bazar, we have these two names. Kondar Pesar Sinha, we'll remember him, not only because of his earlier activities, but because of his activities in Guwahati during the period 1860 to 1880. First, his presidency of the Cotton College school meeting, then his attendance at the Brahmo Samaj meetings, and so on and so forth. Then Prafullawala Devi Chaudhurani, because of these observations. So I earlier talked to you about the Vorolomukh family. The Vorolomukh family, Bolaram Phukon, Kaliram Borua. Kaliram Borua, he was, if I am not mistaken, he was educated at Bishop Cotton's boys' school. I think it was in Jitendranath Bujor Borua's book I first got this important information that he was a student of Bishop School. The Bishop School, that is, there is just one Bishop School, Bishop Cotton School, there in Calcutta, and it has its notable alumni, including Raja Ramana and others. Even I think Nandan Nilekani was a student of, in Lucky Ali was also a student there. Anyway, our Kaliram Borua was also an alumnus of Bishop Cotton School, but he couldn't continue his studies in Kolkata after qualifying in his entrance examination because of difficulties on the home front. He was editor of Assam, 1894 to 1902, a very important Assamese English bilingual weekly. Published a number of books, including Shankardeva's Kirtana. Maintained a Sanskrit toll in his premises at Bhorolomukh, with Mahamohopadhyay Dhireshwara Sajya as the principal. So, in the compound itself, there was this Sanskrit toll established, and a great man like Mahamohopadhyay Dhireshwara Sajya was brought in as its principal. Mahamohopadhyay also helped him in proofreading and all that. So, he was doing these two works together. And finally, Tarun Ram Fukan. So everyone knows about Tarun Ram Fukan, 1877, 1939. Then, okay, I'll show you another thing. This is slide number 15, if someone is there. Slide number 15. 15. You all know Thacker and Spink and Company. Thacker and Spink and Company brought out a number of important books, including The History of Assam by Edward Gate. 15. So this 1916 Thacker's Indian Directory, sorry, it is 19. There is a list of Rajas, Nawabs, Thakurs, etc. Rajas, Nawabs, Thakurs, noblemen, and the principal Zamindars and Talukdars, other than the ruling chiefs. This one. Towards the end, you have these three names. These three names. They are called Rajas, Nawabs, Thakurs, noblemen, and the principal Zamindars and Talukdars, other than the ruling chiefs. It is there in 1916 Thacker's Indian Directory. And these names are: number 1, Tarun Ram Fukan, Zamindar of Guwahati, Kamrup, Assam; Rai Sahab Siddhananda Chowdhury, Zamindar of Guwahati, Kamrup, Assam; Lieutenant Colonel Jalnur Ali Ahmed, Zamindar of Guwahati, Kamrup, Assam. These three names. Rajas, Nawabs, Thakurs, noblemen, and principal Zamindars and Talukdars, other than ruling chiefs. This is something very interesting. We never knew that they were Rajas and Nawabs, but then obviously they were landowners. So Chidananda Chowdhury was also a very important man. We know about Jalnur Ali Ahmed and Tarun Ram Fukan, but then Chidananda Chowdhury was a very important man, and I'll show you his portrait. This is slide number 7. Slide number 7. Chidananda Chowdhury. Slide 7. A bearded man, Chidananda Chowdhury. There was this Chidananda Press, which published this one, Chidananda Chowdhury, a very important man. And it is not for nothing that he is called a nobleman or Nawab. He was the owner of this Chidananda Press, which was one of the 6 printing presses listed in the 1870s documents. There were 6 different printing presses in the 70s of the 19th century. Assam Secretariat Press, then Dharma Prakash Jantra at Majuli, established by Dattadev Goswami. Chidananda Press, Baptist Mission Press. There was one press at, in Sylhet. Sylhet was then a part of Assam. And then Gwalpara, Hito Sadhini Press. These were the 6 important printing presses of the times. And Chidananda Press, one of the most important. So he was the owner of the Chidananda Press. And I had some other documents. Then his son was Bibhavananda Chowdhury. Bibhavananda Chowdhury was the son of Chidananda Chowdhury. He is important for us because he was in the first batch of Cotton College students in 1901. Bibhavananda Chowdhury. And his batchmates were Muhammad Sadullah, Girish Chandra Rai Chowdhury, elder brother of Ambika Giri Rai Chowdhury. So these were his batchmates. Bibhavananda Chowdhury. Unfortunately, he died very young, at the age of 31 or 32. Bibhavananda Chowdhury's portrait is also there with me. Slide number 5. Slide 5. 5 is Bibhavananda Chowdhury. This is Bibhavananda Chowdhury. He died very young, belonged to the first batch of Cotton College students. Then slide number 8, he is also an important personality, and most of you perhaps knew him in person. He is Girijananda Chowdhury. Now that Girijananda Chowdhury University has come up, we should know him. This is Girijananda Chowdhury. These were interesting personalities of the past. I just took their names because of their importance. Chidananda Chowdhury, Bibhavananda Chowdhury, Girijananda Chowdhury. Then let me come to another name, Ramjivan Sinha De. Ramjivan Sinha De. It is in chronological order. Ramjivan Sinha De, one of the important dwellers of Guwahati. Ramjivan Sinha De. He migrated from Sylhet. It was in search of a job that he came to Guwahati and settled there near Ugratara temple. He practiced music, classical music. He practiced music, and it was because of his proficiency in music that Kesab Sinha employed him as a music teacher of his children. And we all know that Kesab Sinha's daughter, one of his children, was Prafullawala Devi Chaudhary. So this gentleman also may have taught Prafullawala classical music. Ramjivan Sinha De. He is the father of Gopal Krishna De. Gopal Krishna De, a very important personality. We owe him so much. He was the librarian of the Karjan Hall Library. It was because of he was a private tutor to Nolini Bala Devi. It was because of him that we had this memorial built of Hemchandra Borua. In Siddhinath Sharma's house, there is the memorial, Hemchandra Borua. It was at the initiative of Gopal Krishna De that it was possible. So both of them, Ramjivan Sinha De, father of Gopal Krishna De, Lakshmi Ram Borua, Sangita Sajja Lakshmi Ram Borua. Actually, at one time, Guwahati was full of music. Guwahati, and when Gunin Oza was singing, I remembered the music of Guwahati. And I'll just give you some examples. If someone can show this slide. Slide number 15. 15. 1-5. This is a very important song for most of us. Slide 15. Abahon. I think you won't be able to see all this. I got it typed the other day. The image was so bad, low resolution image, but then I got it newly typed. Even then, it is not very legible. I'll just read out the first lines. It was on the 27th of May 1901 that Cotton College was established. The Chief Commissioner, Henry Cotton, was there in a meeting. It was attended by Manik Chandra Borua and Prabhat Chandra Rai Bahadur of Dhubri. Raghunath Chowdhury Koka sang this song. Nobin Chandra Bordole on the harmonium. Just think of it. Raghunath Chowdhury singing the inaugural song. Nobin Chandra Bordole on the harmonium. So this is the song. Abahon. It's a very long poem, some 2 pages long. I wonder how he could manage to sing it in some 15 minutes or so. Aji Huprabhate Nobo Onurage. This is a new morning. Cotton College was established after all. Aji Huprabhate Nobo Onurage Ranjita Prokriti Rani. Aparthibo Sneh Bitorise Aha Korunar Sobikhoni. Uhar Rohan Hona Dugalot Balarko Hinduro Bhale. Povitra Bhavot Pran Mugdha Hoy Sorgyo Drishyoti Sale. Uhar Rohan Hona Dugalot Balarko Hinduro Bhale. Balarko Hinduro Bhale. Balarko Sinduro Bunda Bhalo. Balarko Sinduro Bunda Bhalo. Where are they from? Where are they from? This is from Mia Tansen's lyric. Mia Tansen. So Mia Tansen has now come to Cotton College. Mia Tansen's lyric. Balarko Sinduro. Balarko is the young son. Balarko Sinduro. Sinduro is vermilion spot. Vermilion. Balarko Sinduro Bunda. Bunda is pats of vermilion. On the forehead. Morning with its pats of vermilion on the forehead. So this is unmistakably Mia Tansen of Akbar's court. This was earlier published in Ramlal Moitra's Drupad Bhajanavali, published in 1913, the year Tagore got the Nobel Prize for Literature. Ramlal Moitra, Drupad Bhajanavali, 1913. This poem is Ragini Lolita, Tal Chautal. Actually, the name of the first line of the poem is Gagana Mandala Madhya. So I wonder how Raghunath Chowdhury appropriated these three lines, three words from the poem by Mia Tansen. It was first Ramlal Moitra who included this. Ramlal Moitra was an important lawyer of Calcutta who was interested in music. He brought out this Dhrupad Bhajanavali in 1913, which was full of all sorts of mistakes. It was later in the 30s that Suniti Kumar Chatterjee had amended the text, and he cleared some of the mistakes, and he published this paper on Tansen as a musician in the Prafulla Chandra Rai commemoration volume, published in the 30s. So these are the only texts where you find Mia Tansen's lyric that Raghunath Chowdhury Kaka had appropriated. So insofar as the music of the century is concerned, the first part of Guwahati, this was 27 May 1901, Balarko Sindhuro Bhale. Then number 2, Prafulla Borua, son of Sangita Sajja Lokhiram Borua, singing Gose Gose Pati Dile Phulore Horai in the 1924 session of Assam Sahitya Sabha in the Lota Hill field. So Jyoti Prasad Agarwala was there. He had all sorts of misgivings about the people's response. So he was hiding himself under a tree in Bishnu Medhi's campus. Prafulla Chandra Borua sang this, Gose Gose Pati Dile Phulore Horai. And there was a huge crowd, not only to see Lakshminath Bes Borua, who was the president of the session, but also those who came to enjoy the cultural function. This is number 2. The number 3 is 1926 December Congress session. Aji Bondu Kisonder Homagoto Birato Noro Narayana Rupo. This is Ambika Giri Rai Chowdhury on the harmonium. The others were Umesh Chandra Chowdhury, Padmanath Cholia, Puspalata Das, and others. Oh, wonderful. This is the third song I can recall. Ambika Giri Rai Chowdhury, Prafulla Borua, Padmanath Cholia, Umesh Chowdhury, Puspalata Das. Then number 4, it was in the early 30s that Jyoti Prasad Agarwala was felicitated on his return from Germany at the Bhaskar Natya Mandir. The meeting was presided over by Nobin Chandra Bordole. So earlier, Jyoti Prasad Agarwala gave a very brilliant lecture on the distinction between Western music and Eastern music. He said that Eastern music is based on melody, Western music is based on harmony and all that. So the distinction between melody and harmony and all that. Later in the presidential remarks, Nobin Chandra Bordole said that Jyoti Bopa has said nice things about Eastern music and Western music, particularly Western music, but our music is also, our music also has its own greatness. And he started singing, Pase Trinoyono Dibbo Upabono Dekhilonto Biddhamano. These lines from Shankardeva's Harmohan. And he had a wonderful voice, according to all reports. Nobin Chandra Bordole singing, Pase Trinoyono Dibbo Upabono Dekhilonto Biddhamano. Then number 5, this 1946, when Mahatma Gandhi came in his last visit to Guwahati, 1946, the Jubilee Field meeting, where Sudakshina Sharma sang this E Joy Raghura Nandana. E Joy Raghura Nandana, He Raghava, Rame Joy Raghura Nandana. Not many people know that this was Jiveshwar Goswami's composition. Jiveshwar Goswami of Shillong. But then it was Bishnu Prasad Rabha who taught this song to Sudakshina Sharma. So Gandhiji sent message to Gopinath Bordole that he would love to listen to an Assamese bhajan. So one day Gopinath Bordole, accompanied by Surya Kumar Bhuya, came to young Sudakshina Sharma's house and requested her to present a bhajan, and she sang this. It was taught to her by Bishnu Prasad Rabha. E Joy Raghura Nandana. Wonderful. This was, this Mahatma Gandhi is there before you. And you have seen his feet. Devara durlabha pada dekhilu tumari. E joy Raghur Anandana. So he was immediately compared to Rama. This is avatar, Rama. And then Devara durlabha pada dekhilu tumari. E joy Raghur Anandana. Wonderful. And it was in that tradition that we have a poem by Atul Chandra Hajarika. This is perhaps one of the finest poems on Mahatma Gandhi in any Indian language. Amar Bapuji Manu Nasil Nararupi Bhagavan. Amar Bapuji Manu Nasil Nararupi Bhagavan. Gute Bishoy Homosore Jar Gaise Bondona Gan. Ahisil Tao Hikabo Amak Sorgio Premor Bani. Purno Sadinota Jonmogoto Sotto Loboi Lagibo Mani. Daporor সেই সুদৰ্শন চক্ৰ ঘূৰালে যতৰ কৰি পতিতক তেওঁ অমৃত বিলালে বুকুত হাবতি ধৰি আঠুৰ মূৰত চুৰিয়া পিন্ধিলে নঙঠা ফকীৰ হৈ ৰাজ সিংহাসন ভৰিলে ঠেলিলে মিচিকি হাঁহিটি লৈ অহিংসাৰে তেওঁ হিংসাক খেদিলে দেখালে পুণ্যৰ বাট নোৱাখালী আৰু বিহাৰত গৈ পাতিলে প্ৰেমৰ হাত মনোৰম বুলি আই অসমক বিলালে মৰম প্ৰীতি বাপুজি আমাৰ অতি আপোনাৰ আপোনো আপোন অতি সত্যাগ্ৰহী হৈ কাৰাবাস খাটি জীৱন কৰিলে পাত গীতা বাইবেল কোৰাণ মিলাই গঢ়িলে মানুহজাত it is much in the same tradition Gandhiji compared to Lord Rama so this Jiveswar Goswami composition এই জয় ৰঘুৰ নন্দন দেৱৰ দুৰ্লভ পদ দেখিলো তোমাৰি you have access to the feet of the Mahatma great. So it is a city consecrated by the Mahatma. So I now come to some other personalities. Mathura Mohan Borua, he established Victoria Press, then brought out bilingual journal. First it was a Bengali journal. Assam Mihir, 1872-1873. Then he brought out Advocate of Assam. Assam Mihir, actually in one of the articles published in the Bangyo Sahitya Parishad journal, it was Padmanath Vidyabinod who said that he was very close to the Bengalis of the time. Bangalir Bondhu, Chidananda Chowdhury, Mathura Mohan Borua. Mathura Mohan Borua, he brought out Assam Mihir, which later became a bilingual paper, then Advocate of Assam. Most of us know his two children, Subha Borua and Subha Chandra Borua and Tarini Chandra Borua, who was a minister. Now I come to, I wanted to say something about some of the remarkable women of the past. Rajabala Das, Nolini Bala Devi, Prafulla Bala Devi Chodurani, Indira Miri. Indira Miri, who was fluent and proficient in several languages. English, Sanskrit, Bengali, Hindi, remarkable kind of command over these languages. And in one of Priti Borua's articles, I found this interesting kind of information that after Puspalata Das passed away, there was a meeting held in the Brahma Sabha's house here, and Indira Miri Baido gave a remarkable speech in Sanskrit that one who was not there will find it very difficult to even understand that Sanskrit could be so mellifluous. And Indira Miri, that was Indira Miri, a remarkable lady, remarkable lady. Then Amal Prabha Das. So you have Guwahati synonymous with these characters, Amal Prabha Das. Amal Prabha Das, who didn't get admission here in Cotton College because it was before 1929. That's why she went to Calcutta, graduated with chemistry honors, did the MSc in chemistry. Here came back as a Gandhian worker. She was also associated with the Kosturuba Trust. And in some of Gandhiji's writings, we have references to either Amal Prabha Das or Dr. Hari Krishna Das's daughter. She is referred to as Dr. Hari Krishna Das's daughter. So Hari Krishna Das was one of the most important persons. In fact, today this Oza presented this song. There was this Borpetia Para here. Dr. Hari Krishna Das, Ambikagiri Rai Chaudhuri, down to even Siddhananda Das, all great men and women, Amal Prabha Das, okay, the kind of sacrifice made by this family. So he was a very wealthy man, Hari Krishna Das. He was a civil surgeon, Guwahati. Landed property he had. He donated everything. I think 60 bighas of land or 70 bighas of land for Congress works. Gandhiji, Kosturuba Trust. And this, when Mahatma Gandhi came, he played a host to Gandhiji, Saranya Hill. So he had this cottage built for Gandhiji's stay, Hari Krishna Das. So I now come to another person whom most of us do not know anything about. We all talk about the first batch of matriculates from Cotton Collegiate School, 1864. 1864 is important for all of us because it was the year Lokinath Bezborwa was born. And these boys matriculated. Anandaram Borua, Jalnur Ali Ahmed, Madhav Chandra Bordoloi, Sibram Bora. So they are 1864 matriculates. We don't know anything about Sekhaut Ali. Sekhaut Ali is one of the most important persons of the time. So I have some images of some of Sekhaut Ali's books. If someone can show them to us. Sekhaut Ali's slides 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 11. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 slides. Now, 4 important works by Munshi Sekhaut Ali, 4th teacher, mathematics of Guwahati Zilla School. It was at the time called Guwahati Zilla School, later Cotton Collegiate School. Number 1, Ohomia Bhahar Khetra Jamiti, Euclid's Elements of Geometry in Assamese, book 1, 1881. Then number 2, Ganit Pustak, 1883. Number 3, Ohomia Padartha Vidya, 1883. And finally, Paramartha Darpan, 1916. These important textbooks, mathematics, physics, geometry. Then finally, Paramartha Darpan. And Paramartha Darpan was prescribed as a textbook for BA students in Calcutta University in the 30s and the 40s, up till the 50s. And we have to salute the syllabus makers. There was one paper of Assamese prose. So right from Bhattadeva down to Banikanto Kakoti. First Bhattadeva, Assamese prose after all. Then Miri Diori, Rajanikanta Bordole. Then number 3, Kipabor Borua, Kakotor Topola, Lokinath Bezborwa. Then all of a sudden, Sekhaut Ali, Paramartha Darpan. And finally, Banikanto Kakoti. So this is the canon, Assamese prose. Bhattadev through Sekhaut Ali to Banikanto Kakoti, Sekhaut Ali. There is one whole paragraph devoted to a description of Sekhaut Ali in Lokinath Bezborwa's autobiography. You know, Lokinath Bezborwa was not a person. He was very young at the time, I think class 4 or 5. His father got transferred from Lakhimpur to Guwahati, and at the time, young Lokinath Bezborwa, a child Lokinath Bezborwa, I think he was in the 4th or the 5th standard. He was admitted there in Cotton Collegiate School. Everyone was terribly afraid of Sekhaut Ali. Stern headmaster, teaching mathematics, and maybe, okay, no smile. He stood at a right angle to the universe. No left or right. He didn't look either left or right. Straight, stern. And I think some kind of physical punishment also was there that is suggested by Lokinath Bezborwa. There is one whole paragraph. But then towards the end of the paragraph, he said that he was such a stern kind of person. তেওঁৰ শ্ৰেণীটো আমাৰ কাৰণে আনন্দালয় নহয় জমালয় যেন হৈছিল আনন্দালয় নহয় জমালয় যেন হৈছিল So it was not at all a pleasure for us to be there in his classes. Then there is one whole paragraph devoted to Bezborwa's memories of his teacher Sekhaut Ali. his textbooks, etc., geometry, physics, arithmetic, point not only to the author's ability to drive home to the students issues hardly, if ever, discussed earlier in Assamese books in print till then. Okay, writing a book on geometry or mathematics or physics, you must have the terms physiology. So he did it. And Paramartha Darpan is a total different kind of book. It's on religion, on the importance of religion. Paramartha Darpan. Yeah, it is theosophian or philosophy. And as I suggested, we must salute the syllabus makers of the time. That was included as a textbook for BA students, also MA students. So they point not only to the extraordinary malleability of the Assamese language to express new ideas in a clear, distinct, and lucid manner. And it was in the year 2019 that we had to celebrate the centenary of Assamese studies in Calcutta University. It was in 1919 that Assamese was introduced as a subject for the university students. So as such, we had to celebrate it. For various reasons, we couldn't perhaps celebrate it properly. We should at least take note of the contribution of a teacher, as I said, Rameshwar Borua. So Rameshwar Borua is one person we must take note of. And Rameshwar Borua's slide was also there. I think it would not be possible for us to do it now. So music, Guwahati, education, culture and all that. Guwahati, Mia Tansen, Guwahati, Prafullawala Chaudhurani, women's liberation. Okay, forefront of women's liberation. She was an extraordinary kind of lady. And according to Benudhar Rajkua's wife, okay, that was a remarkable speech and eliciting different types of reaction. Obviously, there will be different types of reaction. Someone would be for her, someone would be against her. After all, it was held in Jorhat Government School, the second session of the Ahom Pradeshik Mohila Committee meeting. Anyway, finally, okay, remembering Amitabh, I must call it a day, but if I would be very glad to take one or two questions, if any. Yeah. Just one or two questions, whether it would be possible for me to answer your questions or not. But then, okay, it would be fun. Interaction. And actually, when I got this order from Ulubari to give this speech, I spent time in thinking of a title, all sorts of titles I could think of. Faces. Face is a word we come across. Face is a word that has also been philosophized in the 20th century. Face. So whenever you think of Guwahati, you think of different faces. You hear footfalls of people. Face of an Amal Prabha Das, for example. When you think of a person like Amal Prabha Das or an extraordinary personality like Ambika Giri Rai Chaudhuri. Now, it was Priti Borua Baido who once told me that Ambika Giri Rai Chaudhuri was in the habit of visiting different places. He would come to just every Cotton College hostel, and finally he would go to Cotton College Girls Hostel, line up the students, and he would ask them, okay, tonte lasitor janmo diba parbi na nora? And actually he had his walking stick, and the students were so afraid that finally one said, parim. Otherwise, okay, he would not be satisfied. So he was interested in the production of Lasit Borfokons. So I would like to take some questions. Okay, some kind of interaction would be in order. Yeah, please. It is Moyur.
It's really kept us spellbound for the last 2 hours. I don't know, there was some audio disturbance in between, but I think you overpoured everything with an eloquent and beautiful speech. I just want to have your opinion on two issues. One, you mentioned about Gopal Krishna De, the tutor to Nolini Bala Devi, and what he has done for Hemchandra Barua's bust in Ujan Bazar. But I think he was very brutally assassinated in the city of Guwahati. I just want to know the details of that, if possible. Secondly, I just want to know, you mentioned also about Jaggoram Kharghoria Fukons. He was a wealthy man, a man of interesting dispensation in his personality. And he also contributed 1,000 rupees for a school that we studied, Guwahati Seminary at that point of time, now known as Cotton Collegiate High School. But Hemchandra Goswami, possibly in his Rasanavali, you will find, he has attributed some motive which is not very uncommon, because corruption has been there even earlier days. Arthashastra of Kautilya has also recognized that. But Hemchandra Goswami probably also hinted at that some of the money contributed by Jaggoram Kharghoria Fukon for establishment of Cotton Collegiate School or Guwahati Seminary at that point of time might have originated from some questionable sources. So I'd love to have your opinion on that murder of Gopal Krishna De and Jaggoram Kharghoria Fukon's contribution to Guwahati Seminary.
Thank you.
And
thank you so much.
Again, once again, what a beautiful lecture you have given. Thank you. You
so
have made our evening beautiful. Thank you, sir.
Two things, maybe, I don't know, this is just a kind of conjecture. The Assamese-Bengali kind of conflict could be one reason why he was so brutally murdered. I don't know, because details are not available here. And he was such a simple kind of person, mild, simple, a devoted teacher. Why should he be murdered? And he was such a devoted librarian of Curzon Hall Library, did so much for the Assamese language. He was in love with Assamese language. One reason why, no one thought of erecting a memorial for Hemchandra Barua. It was Gopal Krishna De who initiated the process and finally had the memorial built. And insofar as Jaggoram Kharghoria Fukon is concerned, thank you, Mayur, for this question. That could be there, but he was a remarkable personality. Number one, Francis Jenkins always depended on him for all sorts of things relating to Assam, particularly the Ahom region of Assam, the Upper Assam, for example. And Francis Jenkins was interested in getting some Ahom texts translated into English. And he had to approach Jaggoram Kharghoria Fukon. Jaggoram Kharghoria Fukon mastered the language. I have the document with me. He mastered, he went to Jorhat, stayed there for a long time, nearly mastered Thai language, got the whole thing translated into English. So these things are there. And number two, it was because of him that we have the name Holiram Dhekial Fukon's Assam Buronji everywhere. So everyone now knows Holiram Dhekial Fukon's Assam Buronji. Assam Buronji published in 1829. All sorts of things are there about Assamese people. The Assamese people are very fond of chewing betel nut and all that. They are very dirty. They are interested. Even Assamese women, also the women of the upper classes, they are also they are fond of weaving. Weaving was not considered a good thing then. So all these are there. And another observation I would like to make, we are talking about all these great men. And as I started talking about them, I remembered some of my own lectures here in U2 and U9. There is a poem by Stephen Spender. I think continually of those who were truly great. I think continually of those who were truly great, who from their womb remembered the soul's history through corridors of lights where the sons, so on and so forth. Anyway, some of them were so great people. Even Jaggoram Kharghoria Fukon. Just think of him offering 1,000 rupees for the construction of the school. Then his mastery over different languages. So his interactions with the powers that be, and his proficiency in different languages. Brahmo Samaj, for example. I suppose he was one of the pioneers in the entire state. He was a Brahmo. He was a Brahmo close to Ram Mohan Rai. There is no other person so close to Ram Mohan Rai. He spent as many as 2 years with Ram Mohan Rai, attending his prayer meetings. So he must have also had some proficiency in Brahmo theology as well. So he was one of the pioneers here. And Brahmo movement, it is one of the most important social movements in the 19th century. So insofar as your first question is concerned, okay, some conjectures can be made, the Assamese-Bengali kind of conflict. And this leads me to another issue. We now talk about, some of us talk about William Robinson and others. He said all sorts of nasty things about Assamese language. Even Hopkinson, for example, Hopkinson said that the Municipal Act cannot be introduced here in Guwahati because Guwahati population consists only of some officers and their butlers and followers. Butlers, so he used the word butler, butlers and followers. Butlers and followers of these officers, British officers. So it is no use introducing the Municipal Act. But it was the same Hopkinson who also praised Anandaram Dhekial Phukan as someone greater than even Ram Mohan Rai. So in one of his official intimations, he praised Anandaram Dhekial Phukan in superlative terms. I didn't have occasion to refer to the importance of an Anandaram Dhekial Phukan. Finally, I would say that he was one person who was also a founder member of the Bethune Society. Bethune Society was one of the most important societies of colonial Calcutta. He was one of the 4 important members. The other important members, the others are great in their own ways. 4 important members. And whatever he had done for the Assamese language, his petition to Mills, or for example, his work on the Assamese language, okay, all this, Anandaram Dhekial Phukan, everyone, Padmavati Devi Phukan, Anandaram Dhekial Phukan, this Borolomok line. So finally, I would say that, okay, civilization started here, modern civilization, modernity started here at Borolomok. And Borolomok has given us all sorts of people, down to even Rohini Chowdhury, Holiram Deka. I think the day before yesterday, Holiram Deka's statue was launched there. I think yesterday or the day before, we got the report. Holiram Deka was also there. You think of all sorts of legal luminaries like from Holiram Deka down to Kiran Moilahiri. All sorts of great people are there, great people were there. Men of formidable intellect like Hirana Chandra Bhuya, great writers like Birinchi Kumar Burwa, we never talk about now. Great writer, and Jivana Batat is an all-time classic. Great poets like Raghunath Chaudhuri, Ambika Giri Rai Chaudhuri, okay, this is a list which is endless. I don't know whether I could answer Mayur's question. Yeah. So another question, please, yes.
Very clearly and loudly said that Mughals had ruled Guwahati for 26 years.
Yeah.
Can I get the reference of that?
Hujo Kumar Bhuya, Anglo-Assamese relations. Yeah. The dates are clearly mentioned. It was for as many as 26 years. So it is no use saying, Kionu Pahora Homia Hera, Sirokal Tumi Asila Satin, 26 years. Under the Burmese also, you had to, under Mingi Maha Bondula, you had to be there for a couple of years maybe, till the British came here. Okay, yet another interface. Yes, please.
Rajita, thank you for the wonderful talk. I was wondering if you could throw some light on when did town planning in the actual sense begin in Guwahati. I am not talking of the time when the Ahom generals built up the battlements, etc. But after that, and not excluding the judges' residences and judges' field, etc. Did really any sensible, long-term, far-sighted town planning for this city of the East ever really start at Guwahati any time?
This is a very interesting question. By way of answering your question, I would just refer to that report by Hopkinson. That Hopkinson said that Guwahati is not fit for the Municipal Act, town planning and all that, irrelevant, because the population consists only of butlers and followers of the English officers. But then Calcutta didn't accept his version. He said that, okay, still you try. Because he was a very snooty type of character, Hopkinson. Although he said, at times he said some nice things about Assam or Anandaram Dhekial Phukon. Otherwise, about Assamese language, he said all sorts of nasty things. He said it remains a petoy of Bengali and so on and so forth. So I think town planning as such started in the 70s. I don't know. But then some constructions were already made. For example, as I said, Bogle had built that house, which has now been converted into the River Heritage Center and all that. But you will have to give me some more time to think of this issue, town planning. I think someone else would be able to enlighten us here. Town planning as such. It's a very interesting kind of question. Another, please. Yeah. 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 Not second lecture. 5 other lectures would be necessary. Yeah. So many things were left out. Okay, first I thought that, it was very arbitrarily chosen, a topic very arbitrarily chosen, and okay, this was a very ambitious kind of project. Guwahati down the ages. Guwahati with its 3 components, Pragjyotispur, okay, the mythopoetic kind of thing. Then you can think of Bhaskar Burman or even Ambari excavation. We now no longer talk about the Ambari excavation. They yielded so many things, so many artifacts. And one person, he was Dr. Chowdhury, Rabindev Chowdhury, he suggested that that could have been a kind of factory, I don't know. And Digholi tank was used to transport them to other places. These artifacts were transported through Digholi tank. Okay, Digholi had its connection with the river. So I think there should be a whole book on the Ambari excavations. One whole civilization we'll be able to see. And the other day, one of my friends said that, sir, you talk about Calcutta, you talk about Job Sarnock. Would you be able to say who founded Guwahati? It would not be possible for us to say. Yes, in Kolkata, you say it was Job Sarnock. That was a one-man show. But Guwahati is a kind of togetherness. It is another thing that Parasuram Borua settled here. And he was such a wealthy man, okay, with Murshidabad connection and all that, Hadira Soki and all that. And I forgot to tell you one thing. Okay, all these orphans adopted by Lakshminarayan Brahmachari, even Ranaram Borua, Gunaviram Borua's father Ranaram Borua, went to Benares and established one Shiva temple there. That is still there. It is called Kamrup Moth. Kamrup. There in Google there is the image of the Kamrup Moth. Ranaram Borua went there. So very interesting personalities, and I must thank you for drawing my attention to the absence of the subalterns there. Maybe in some other lectures it would be possible for us to do it. Thank you so much for so patiently listening to me. Thank you indeed.